recording. So we're recording now. Fantastic. Thank you guys. We know there's going to be a ton of people flooding in and then people watching afterwards. So thank you guys so much for being here. If you have any questions, type them in the chat. If they're relevant to what we're talking about, we'll answer them as we go. If they are not, we will save them till the end. So be sure to know that we will get to your questions. So I wanted to go ahead and introduce Mike Zigari, who is our guest today. And Mike Zigari is an Amazon seller. He is, I guess you call yourself a recovering physical therapist.
Yeah, serial entrepreneur, you can tack on to that a little bit, but recovering physical therapist.
Yeah, and serial entrepreneur, built his own in-home physical therapy business, then discovered Amazon and was really successful with that. Started coming into, I believe, just issues with sponsored ads taking a lot of time and not being, as streamlined and as exact as possible, probably wasting a lot of money on sponsored ads. And so decided that he needed to build a tool called Ppc Entourage. And so I built that tool, Ppc Entourage. You've probably heard of it. It is a software that helps you to manage your PPC campaigns. He also developed a strategy to teach you about how to handle sponsored ads called the Blueprint series. And very wise and informed about all things PPC. There's a ton of stuff coming out about sponsored ads, different kinds of sponsored ads beyond what was around when I got started in 2014. So we're going to basically talk about that, but we're also going to kind of string the conversation along into inventory management and cash flow management, because Mike then went and built a tool called Margins, and Margins helps to figure out whether you're being profitable with your products. Are you actually making money with the Amazon business, or is it basically just churning dollars? So I know that, especially starting out in business, that is a very big problem for people. So thank you so much for being here.
Chelsea, thanks so much for having me. And also thank you for tackling such a massive problem. That was the other massive problem that we had in our business, is inventory management. So kudos to you for taking that head on, because that's something that that's a beast that I can't even possibly imagine trying to go and working on. And I was really impressed by the article that you put out a couple of weeks. When was that article that you put out?
I think so, yeah, it was a couple of weeks ago. Maybe it went live like last Tuesday, I think.
Right. Yeah. So it's a great article talking about how to connect your marketing plan with your inventory management plan, with your cash flow plan. And to me, those things have to be synced up and connected. And your article really resonated. So if you guys haven't read that article yet, I really recommend going through that article, because it's really thorough. And to me, it's like a really good way to connect all three pieces to this and treat them as individual pieces, but then combine them together and make sure that all of your teams are communicating properly. Because if one team is off, the whole piece is off. And I've experienced that. I'm sure you've experienced that. Everyone on this call, I'm sure, has experienced at some point your marketing is not synced up with your inventory, and it can become quite the headache very quickly. So I'm excited to talk about all this stuff today, Chelsea.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So I dropped that the blog post in the chat, and I will include it when we send out the replay and in the description when we upload this to YouTube. So you should have access to that. But I definitely am very interested in this topic, especially as I've talked to, because the other thing you have is you have an agency. So you work with a lot of sellers directly. Isn't that right?
Yeah, we have an agency. We work with a bunch of sellers. We've had it now for 3 years or so. So we see all sorts of categories. We see all sorts of cash flow issues. We see all sorts of stock outs, all sorts of things that come into play. And it's important this is a major piece, because if they don't have their inventory, we can't do what we do great, and vice versa. So it really works well together. I found it very interesting in talking to agencies, how often marketing, which should be helping your business, actually can come into hurting your business when you're spending a bunch of money on ads and then you stock out, where you could have, actually made more profitable sales and not stocked out. So, you need to be able to plan your marketing to actually benefit your business as opposed to injuring it. Right. And we could even start talking about that point right there. One of the reasons why I built the margins tool
Yeah.
was because we had SKUs that simply weren't profitable.
Yeah.
We were doing things like, lots of promotions and lots of advertising. And at the end of the day, there was very limited amount of profitability. Some of them had profitability, but not enough to really reinvest in the product and have our cash flow like open and free enough to invest in other products and also to pay ourselves. So we weren't making money in certain SKUs.
Yeah.
And that's all part of planning your advertising strategy and knowing exactly not just your ACOS, but your true ACOS and also your net profit margins at the end of the day.
Right.
So that's like the first thing that we look at when we have a call with our clients. We look at the true ACOS and we look at their ad spend margin impact. If they're around like 6 to 12%, they're on the right track. If they're like 15%, 20%, that means their advertising is eating too much into their, it typically means, I mean, it could be different if you have a high margin product.
Yeah.
But if like 15 to 20%, that could mean you're spending too much money on advertising and your profits are not where they should be to reinvest into inventory to make sure you have enough stock.
Yeah. And so that's 15 to 20% of your overall sales or your overall revenue.
Yeah, so we look for 6 to 12% typically across the account, but then you have to dig in on a SKU by SKU level and really look at the profitability of that SKU. When it starts to get troublesome is when it gets up to 15 to 20%. I have seen even higher than that, 20, 30, 40%. And believe it or not, some sellers, are unaware of the impact it's having on their profitability.
Yeah.
And maybe that it's a new SKU and they have to put that money in initially. But sometimes that's not the case, and they're investing heavily in SKUs where it's like there's no end game. It's just kind of keeping, like you said before, it's churning cash without any kind of end game.
Yeah.
And without knowing those numbers, it's very hard to really have a sound strategy initially.
Yep. That's awesome. So what do you find is the biggest mistake that people are making with PPC?
The biggest mistake, well, I would say the first one is not knowing your numbers, and the second one is not having a sound strategy or plan. And one of the things I'd like to discuss today on the call is how to align, like the plan. We call it the customer buying cycle.
Yeah.
And there's different strategies with PPC. There's discovery, where you're trying to get your product out in front of new shoppers and you're discovering new relevant audiences, new categories, new ASINs, new targets. Then there's like the consideration phase where you're trying to compete against your competition and you want to get all those impressions and that reach. And then there's the decision phase where these search terms and keywords and targets are converting for you and you want to get the sales as long as it's within your target ACOS or within your whatever purpose behind what you're doing the ads for. The point behind this, what I'm saying here is the discovery phase. If you're really low on stock, then you may want to back off on your discovery phase and back off on some of those auto campaigns and back off on some of that testing. And that's where you could sort of trim the fat in your ad spend a little bit. Because in your article, you spoke about this. You spoke about how to reduce your velocity if you know that you're going to be going out of stock. But how do you do that without hurting your placements and your ranking? And that's a conversation I want to have with you is, what are the things that you see sellers doing if they know they're going to go out of stock? If there's a chance because of your software, they've identified that, okay, they can make this little tweak to their velocity. What are some things that sellers are doing to lower their velocity safely without going and losing ranking?
I mean, one of the things is to determine like how much do you have to slow it down. I think that's the first thing to figure out is, how much do you need to slow it down, and that causes you to have to create, do some math if you've got, which is one of the reasons I built, one of the things that, is occurring in the stock tool is you're actually, and anyone could do this is an inventory timeline. That's a really important piece to inventory management that people don't generally, have. Like you look at other softwares and they don't have a timeline, but it actually helps you to envision and pattern out what's going to happen with that inventory. So you can see, the sales and you can see the pattern of sales and then the day that you run out of stock and how big is that gap. Maybe you've got an order that should be arriving 11 days from now. So you only need to slow it down so much. So the first thing to do is to calculate how much do I slow this down because, you know, you don't want to lose a lot of ranking. So maybe you're selling 10 units a day of a product and you need to, you know, slow it down to 8, you know, and it's doing that math of plugging in, manually plugging in, you know, 8 and saying, okay, eight actually works. It gets us there, or it doesn't. And we need to, you know, back it down and we go to 7, and then start, you know, just continually monitoring that. But the two main things that are tools that are used to slow down sales are turning down your ads or raising your price, slowly, incrementally raising your price so that you don't, you know, trigger losing your own buy box. But those are basically the two basic tools. And I don't know if you have any other ones that you know of, but those are the two that I've heard of and used.
Yeah, there could be other things too, like any kind of coupons or deals that you have going, promotions. You may want to take those off to reduce the likelihood of a sale or the conversion rate of that sale, and then put them back on once you have stock.
Yeah.
Which is another thing that we notice with sellers is, like, a lot of times they have coupons and promotions, and it's great because it increases conversion rate. But what is the impact of that coupon and that promotion on your overall cash flow? Because I know we're kind of bouncing a little bit here, but going back to the beginning of the conversation, we have the marketing, we have the cash flow management, and we have the inventory management. And those three things have to be in alignment. So if your cash flow is being eaten alive by coupons and promotions, which it can be, and we've seen that, then what does that do to your inventory planning? And what does that do to your marketing? And how do they all play together? So we call it promotion margin impact. And if you're looking to slow down sales, you can strip that, and you can slow down your sales a little bit that way as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. One of the points to make on that is just, you actually have to know, first of all, you have to know that you're going to stock out. And I think it's really funny, but, you know, I've experienced working with an 8-figure seller who, you know, who had a coupon. They would create a coupon, email it out to a bunch of people, and you know, and on Mother's Day, and then by Father's Day was pumping the brakes, canceling lightning deals, stocking out. And so you have to know, like, so it's, you know, and I bring up the 8-figure point just to point out that even at, you know, at that stage in the game, we're still not sophisticated enough in the inventory management space. We're so stuck in marketing that I'm trying to push the conversation to inventory, because we still have really high level sellers who are so fixed on marketing that they're not seeing the big picture of how inventory impacts that. And so that's 20% off coupons that if you know, that you use just to basically drive yourself into a stock out, where you could have just not run the sale and made full price sales and possibly stayed in stock.
Yeah, and that comes down to planning your marketing and syncing your marketing with the inventory management team, and really planning out a strategy.
Yeah.
So you asked me before what sellers don't typically do, or what mistakes they make.
Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed is coming up with a sound strategy is really a slowly improving, incrementally improving strategy over time. So like something like creating automatic campaigns, and then building upon that with manual campaigns, and then building upon that with breakout campaigns, and then slowly starting to get like an army of campaigns that are working for the SKU over a period of time, as opposed to like launching a ton of SKUs or launching a bunch of products all at once and having those huge fluctuations. If you spend an hour optimizing every week and an hour expanding every week, and do that consistently over a period of time, you look for ways to save money, you look for opportunities to expand, that'll be a nice way to slowly start to improve your advertising over time. So you can start to dominate the space. We came out with a playbook series. We don't do the blueprint series anymore. We're getting rid of that. The playbook series has 28 different campaigns. So a lot of people want to be like, wow, 28 different campaigns. Well, it starts with just one. It starts with a launch campaign, and you can do 2 different types of launch campaigns. Then you could do an automatic campaign, and then you grow from there. But the point is, if you have an army of campaigns that you're slowly starting to build over time, that you can rely upon, that you can slowly start to build over time and optimize over time, that is going to start a really great cycle, a flywheel of sales over time. So maybe you don't have to do as many promotions and have as many of those crazy fluctuations over time.
Mm-hmm.
You have this really great army of advertising campaigns that are working for you.
That's awesome.
And guys, there's so many opportunities now with advertising. It's unbelievable. There's so many different things you can do. Creativity is going to come into play big time.
Which is good because we never used to have that before. You had it in your listing, but you didn't have it in the ads. I mean, and slowly we've seen, with storefronts and, and the product display ads, it started to creep in a little bit. It's like you got, a little bit of, space for some copy. And, so I'm seeing a lot more. Amazon's moving in the direction of, more visuals and more kind of image heavy, not just, hey, here's the listing. Moving in that direction.
Also, targeting is going to become a big thing. DSP, there's a lot of targeting options. Now with product display, there's targeting options. A lot of headline copy that you can use your copy skills to improve your ads.
You're talking about targeting outside of Amazon, like buying external traffic from inside of Amazon's platform?
Yeah, and on third-party networks as well, and even things on like the phones and all sorts of other networks that you can buy traffic from with DSP, and then retargeting traffic. And there's really all of this is going to become available to sellers in the near future. So it's an interesting world that we're all in. And there's lots of opportunities, but the tricky part becomes, Chelsea, we live in a strange times right now. And there's so much going on that impacts inventory management. We just experienced, I don't know, I've heard upwards of 6 years of exponential growth in e-commerce based on the current scenario of what's going on. People are adapting and adopting, buying from home more than going out to the store. They don't want to go out to the store. So my question to you is, as someone who's really well-versed in inventory management, how in the heck do we even start to take all of these variables? Because I know your tool does something, it's more than forecasting. It's called modeling.
Yeah.
The difference between forecasting and modeling is totally different.
Yeah.
So we're now talking about modeling after a scenario that we've never lived through before.
Yeah.
So I know that's a lot to unpack, and I'd like to start there. And guys, if you have any questions about that in the chat, let me know. But how do we model something we've never experienced?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was very different, very interesting. I can't remember off the bat what it was, but there were definitely features that we had to tweak to be able to adjust. I think some of it had to do with just sales velocities and, so there were definitely things that we had to do. And we're also, because of all the changes and because Amazon can't control or can't house all of the inventory, and they're basically ejecting sellers, a large portion of the sellers' inventory from their warehouses. We also have to now customize ourselves to get into, being our own fulfillment center, being our own distribution channel, not just relying on Amazon. But one of the things that is valuable in terms of the tools that we have is trends, is looking at, what is the trend? We have year-to-date trend. So basically that looks at, you can take your last year's sales, and so you can either look at, your past 30 days, past 60 days, and average sales, or you can take your last year's sales, and it basically will plug in what you did this time last year on a daily basis. You did 12, on the 3rd, you did 15 on the 4th, on the 2nd, and just all of the, gives you, play by play of everything that you did last year. But then you can plug in your trend, a year-to-date trend, and it'll look at what you did from the beginning of the year to yesterday and what you did that same period last year. And so you can see how much growth you've had by just taking a combination of last year's sales and the trend and kind of seeing the trend that has occurred. And we can either determine that that's going to maintain and kind of use that to move us forward, or we can say, okay, well, that's when, as people start getting back to work, maybe that'll maintain, but maybe it's going to decrease, over time. It might decrease, say 10%, and then 20%. And so you can actually build in sales patterns. You have to basically kind of, consider what you think is going to happen. But, maybe we'll say, okay, in the beginning of the year, maybe some people will start to go back into shopping and stuff. So you can actually add decreases, build decreases into the projections.
Right. So we all know there's going to be some curveballs and nothing is perfect, but
Mhm.
this tool helps us to make projections based on past data, based on past performance. And then also there's something really cool in there where you can actually layer in forecasting for different like advertising plans.
Yep.
So if your inventory team is talking with your advertising team, you can say, guys can communicate with each other and say, hey, we're going to start this campaign. We expect this type of increase. Can our inventory handle that?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times there's a disconnect between, the advertising team and the marketing team and also the inventory team, and they'll do something and then that'll cause the other team to get upset because they
Yeah.
don't have inventory.
Yeah.
So those are the things that we can control. We
Uh-huh.
can control that communication. We can control setting up campaigns that make an impact, that mean something, versus like just doing something willy-nilly without looking at the other piece and having that communication. Because we all know there's going to be all these different variables. Who knows what's going to happen in 2 or 3 months? Like, who knows if the lead times are going to be different or if the check-in times are going to be different, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But at least having that one piece, right, Chelsea, is important, that communication between the two teams.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Whether you're doing it on Excel or you're doing it in your head or you're doing it, you have to communicate and you have to communicate the idea, because you can stock someone out, and you can stock yourself out, and then the inventory, sorry, my dog is,
It's okay.
you can stock, the inventory team, can kind of get frustrated because if they know what's happening, hey, if they know what's happening, they can actually, plan for it. They can tell you what is needed, what can be done. If you can't do 20% increase, you can do maybe 15%, but then plan for 20% on the next order if they know. But if you're not planning for, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he says, I've been doing the same order and the same frequency for the past 2 years. Well, that's planning to basically maintain what you're doing, and eventually that's going to, that's not going to help you, because Amazon won't favor someone who just basically maintains and does not, they're going to favor the up and comers that are actually more aggressive. So
entropy, eventually it will go away.
yes. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, before we forget, you mentioned your playbook series. How does someone get a hold of that? Do they get that when they sign up for, they try your software, or do you have that?
No, it's available for a limited. We're going to turn it into a Kindle book because we're going to add some chapters beforehand. But right now it's available for free. So it's actually, this is so horrible. It's not available like right this second, but it will be this afternoon. So
okay. So is there somewhere like they can sign up for a notification list, or sign up on your email, and then you'll send out an email to let people know?
Yeah, we're sending out an email about it next week. We figured we'd do it after the holiday so people get a chance to. But guys, there's nothing else that I know of that's out there like this. It's essentially me going over 28 different types of campaigns and like explaining the reason why. And we break it down into the buying cycle. So launch phase versus discovery phase versus consideration versus purchase versus post-purchase, which is the most important thing. Because now we have a loyal fan base. We want to get those people in the door and get them purchasing from us again. And there's ways to do that creatively with Amazon advertising that we used to never be able to do before. So while it may seem like, maybe this is a lot, but we break it down step by step, how to set it up. And we make it very simple and straightforward so that you can easily just go to Seller Central. You don't have to use our tool. Just go to Seller Central. You can just set up the campaign, and we go through all the reasons why. And there's all sorts of things like, finding audiences and retargeting them off Amazon, which you guys can do inside of Seller Central. So we also go over sponsored brand ads, which there's a lot of junk out there, tons of junk out there. You guys can do better. So how to create an army of sponsored brand ads that are very relevant to what the customers are shopping for, and how to align the actual ads so that you have a better chance of conversions. Because sponsored brand ads, the conversion rate can be high and the ACoS can be low if you know what you're doing. It can be high. It can be the reverse of that too if you don't know what you're doing. If your audiences are scattered and your brand and your headline isn't good, your images isn't good. So we go over step by step how to do that. So I'm excited about that, and I think you guys are going to benefit from it. And it's free for a limited time. And I'm kind of curious about everyone's feedback. So.
Cool.
If I were to say something that you guys can do that would be of high value and high impact, taking that playbook and then looking at some of your SKUs and asking yourself, where is this SKU along its journey as in its life cycle? Is it brand new? Has it been around for a couple of years? And then go through the playbook and then try to fill in the gaps so that you can meet. The whole point of it is to meet the shopper where they're at in the buying cycle, and to place an ad for maximum efficiency based on where they're at in the buying cycle, and to up your creative game and to reduce your wasted ad spend. That's the whole point of this thing.
Yeah.
But then you can combine that and marry that with inventory management, and then start to think about scaling a little bit, start to think about increasing your velocity, and then use Chelsea's tool to forecast that, and then also trim the fat, because that's the other thing too, is trim the fat of what's not working.
Yeah.
If there's SKUs that are not working, that's draining your profitability, it's draining your energy, and that time could be spent elsewhere. That's what the margins tool does. But I mean, if you have any SKUs that are just hanging around, then those SKUs are going to be draining the lifeblood of your business. I don't think it's worth keeping them around. Yeah. Anything on that, Chelsea, with regards to getting rid of SKUs that aren't working?
Yeah, I mean, looking at velocity, one of our reporting system inside of our tool helps to filter things by adjusted velocity. So I think everyone needs to have some guidelines on what velocity is kind of the make break point. If you have a product that has been, up for say 6 months and you haven't gotten it above, whatever it is for you. I know some people are in wholesale and some people are in private label. So that's very different for a wholesale, versus a private label, especially based on the fact that the lead times are very different. But say that's 20 for a private label brand. If you can't get it above 20 or above 15 or above 10, whatever it is, set that as a kind of a trigger, and you say, okay, I want to see a report of everything, that has velocity below 10 units a day, a daily velocity of 10 units. And those are the ones that you should be looking at. And that's also going to affect your IPI score, especially if you've got a ton of inventory and it's not moving. You've got excess inventory and sell-through, and those are 2 of the 4 points in the IPI score, which a lot of people were affected by the threshold change. That's in terms of inventory health. Amazon's really looking at inventory health right now. And so if if a lot of the time, if you've got this, this fat, that you have to trim, it's going to improve your IPI score, and it's also going to improve your cash flow, especially in a private label. If you've got something that doesn't, that you can't sell through for 6 months, that's 6 months worth of capital that's doing nothing for you. So if you continue to place orders just because it's, kind of selling, then, it all ripples through, I think, your entire business, from inventory, marketing, inventory, and into cash flow.
Yeah. And we also, have MOQ, minimum order quantities, MOQs. Yep. Mm-hmm. So like if you have something that's low velocity, you may have to be put in the position where you have to order an MOQ of, let's say, 500 units or 1,000 units. And then it's like, now it's really not worth it, because you're going to be holding on to inventory for a long period of time just because of the MOQ. Yeah. I know I've made that mistake way back in the past. I'm like, well, we got to get it because it's selling 10 units a day. Well, no, you have 500 MOQ and it's going to sit, or whatever, 1,000, and it's going to sit there forever and just collect dust.
Yeah.
But if it's not moving, it's not generating cash flow, and it's not good for your business. Unless there's another reason to have the product on in stock.
Yeah, that's a big piece that I think is very overlooked. And in 2021, where we want to kind of, the next place that we want to go is to look at logistics. We've got forecast modeling. We're going to get into logistics modeling, being able to figure out what, how much is something actually costing you. If we can tell what the pallet, the pallet storage fees are, what the labor cost is, what the, carton labeling fees, if we know all the fees and we know, the inventory turn, we can actually start to figure how much is that going to cost you. If you're buying an MOQ and it's sitting for 6 months, you will actually get closer to knowing your true profitability from a storage and fees standpoint as well. So that's something we're really interested in, because that's, I think, a real kind of blind spot for pretty much all businesses, because it's so much work to actually do the math to figure that out.
There's a lot of blind spots in this business because there's so many moving parts. You know, how it's like, even when you go on Amazon, there's all these different fees that eat into your margins, but it's hard to know what all those fees are. You know, you have the FBA fees, you have the commission referral fees, you have the coupon code fees, you have the advertising fees, all these different things. It's like, what is the impact of that? And then having inventory sit around, like you said, what is the long-term projection of that? If you could do that and have logistics management in your tool, that would help a lot of sellers to really forecast a lot better. And then hopefully communicate that to their suppliers and be like, hey, if I get this MOQ of 1,000, I'm not making any money. Can you do 150? Can you do 200? Can you do 300? And hopefully make better decisions with your suppliers.
Right.
If that's possible.
Yes, exactly. Awesome. So, okay. So in terms of, advertising, because there are a lot of different ads that are coming out, what do you feel like are the biggest missed opportunities for most sellers? You know, maybe they started their Amazon business, early on, and they're kind of stuck in their ways, or maybe they're just starting out and they're kind of, they've got analysis paralysis and don't know where to start. Like, what are the big opportunities that you see that are constantly being missed by sellers?
There's a lot of opportunities right now. So I think at this point, it's easy to get that paralysis by analysis and all that. But I would start with the basics and start with an auto campaign, and then start with some research campaigns, manual campaigns, and then break out some winning targets into their own individual campaigns. To sort of build like an army of different ads. So by doing that, you have one target per campaign. You can better maneuver and better optimize your bid for placements and all sorts of things for that individual target. So you start to slowly build out your campaigns, which takes time, which takes, probably about an hour a week of going in and really organizing things, depending on how many SKUs you have. And then you start to layer on the other pieces, which would be the sponsored brand ads. We have an opportunity, we call it the copy, rinse, and repeat strategy, where you basically take a sponsored brand ad that's working for you, and you simply copy it and then take the search terms that are working for you and then put that into the actual headline and put that as the actual keyword that you're targeting. So you're not recreating the wheel. You're just going to the search term report, looking at what's working, and then copying, rinsing, and repeating to make aligned ads. I can tell you a lot of sellers are not doing that. They're not doing that at all.
So you would take an ad and then you would take the keyword, say, cell phone case, and that would be your headline in the branded ad?
Yeah. So for example, let's say you have a really good sponsored brand ad that's working well. You would then say, okay, this is working really well. Then go into your search term report and look at the search terms that have multiple orders at a profitable ACOS. And those are going to be the search terms that you want to target. Take those search terms and target them in a brand new sponsored brand ad. And with that search term somewhere in the headline. So if somebody's searching for that, they automatically see your sponsored brand ad. There's alignment between the two.
Yeah, there's a psychological connection. I search this, I click this. Yeah.
And all you have to do is take the time to copy, rinse, and repeat, and do that over a period of time. Most ads are not made like that on Amazon. A lot of the ads up there on sponsored brand ads are poor English because they're written from Chinese sellers. And you can clearly see that it's not written by someone who speaks English. So advantage to you, but it's just about doing the work and also forecasting that over time. That's another big thing, is if you do it slowly over time. A lot of sellers, and I'm guilty of this myself, is I'll do a bunch of things all at once and then forget about it for a month, and then go back and do a bunch of things all at once and then forget about it. And that's not great for a lot of things. It's not great for planning your cash flow, because now those campaigns are starting to eat away at your cash flow. Who knows, you got to be very careful about that, because if you create too many campaigns all at once, who knows what is that doing to your budget and your cash flow? And it's harder to manage all of those. So having a routine system of optimizing and expanding, and slowly doing that over a period of time will be a lot better over time. And then taking advantage of all of the different opportunities out there, like sponsored display ads are another one. If you guys aren't doing sponsored display ads, product targeting is really premium real estate. So premium real estate on the product detail page, right below the buy box and the bullet points, there's some really awesome real estate right over there. And what you can do is just harvest the ASINs from your search term reports. And you can go after those because you know you've already gotten a sale from those ASINs and you can target those.
The
All
ones
that's
that have been successful for you, not just
right.
every ace. Yeah.
Not every ASIN, the ones that have gotten a good ACOS already.
Yeah.
So right there is really, that's a really good strategy, but also then doing category targeting. I don't think a lot of sellers are taking advantage of all the different category targeting options out there, which especially for the product targeting, sponsored display product targeting, you can do category targeting. And I've seen strange things where you would think a certain category would perform very well, but it's the other category that sneaks in and is suddenly performing with like a really low ACOS. And you wouldn't know that unless you took the time to actually test all the different categories.
Yeah.
And category targeting is really great because it's like, it feeds that research engine, an audience building engine. Once you know who your audience is, you can then target them over and over and over again.
Yeah.
My message would be to slowly start to build this stuff out over time. And by the way, guys, the playbook series goes over all of this stuff, but to do it routinely over a long period of time and be consistent with it, or hire someone in your team to be consistent with it, or outsource it to be consistent with it. Yeah. And then slowly start to build out those campaigns over time so that you don't have the stock outs or the cash flow issues.
Yeah.
It can happen either way. You can go nuts with these campaigns and have the stock out issues, or you can have flop after flop, and that could eat away at your budget and your cash flow.
Yeah. And I really like what you said about, being consistent, because sometimes we break that consistency because there's, quote, nothing to do. And we're just like, oh, we check it and it's, nothing to do. We check it, it's nothing to do. And it gets boring. And so you break that consistency, and then you stop doing it weekly. You do it, say, you turn around, a month has gone by and you realize, you spent all this money, you wasted all this money, or with inventory, you should have ordered 2 weeks ago, and so there's that consistency, even with the boring things, is really very important, just to schedule a time with yourself. This is my time to do, my optimization of my ads. This is my time to look at my inventory and make sure that everything's good. And if you don't do that, time slips away because we're busy.
Yeah. Inventory, would you suggest looking at that at least on a weekly basis?
Yeah. Yeah. And, if you are selling a lot and selling quickly, we've got some people who are looking at it on a daily basis,
Right.
So, at least a weekly basis. And then it's all about that routine, even if you've got a ton of inventory, it's about keeping in a schedule with yourself so that you don't turn around and realize that you should have ordered or transferred and now you're stocking out.
Right. Yeah. That's something vitally important to be. One of the mistakes we've made in our business is we left that in the hands of someone who was new to it. And we were focused on other areas of the business. Yeah. And we decided there's so many opportunities out there.
Yeah.
We decided to get into other marketplaces and did it a little bit too aggressively. And we placed this first. So there was 2 issues there, guys, two issues. We didn't do our inventory management, or we weren't consistent with it. And we left it in the hands of someone who didn't know the business as well. And we tried to expand faster than we should have in that position. So the combination was not a good combination.
Yeah.
My question to you is, when do you think sellers should consider expanding to Walmart, to all these other different places? Is it something that people should focus on Amazon USA first and get that dialed in, and then expand to Shopify, Canada? Walmart now is a big thing. All that. So there's so many opportunities out there.
Yeah.
And one mistake with that could be very bad for inventory management, because then you could order a lot of excess inventory and that could be horrible for cash flow. And how do you make those projections? And there's something does your tool help you with that?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of currently, we don't have integrations with the other softwares. That is a plan on our roadmap. We just don't have it yet. But in terms of, cash flow, I think the 2 things that always weigh very heavily is, the time and And when we say time, sometimes it's, sometimes it's the actual time, not having the time to do enough. And sometimes it's just not having the attention. And then there's also the money aspects of it, and I think that if you're going to launch on a new platform, you need to launch slowly. If you're going to start with Shopify, it might be best to start with an integration with Amazon and have Amazon do your Shopify fulfillment. You can't do that with Walmart, but have Amazon do your Shopify fulfillment until you ramp it up to a point where it actually warrants you, kind of peeling that off and having a third party, fulfillment center. Because if you send a bunch of inventory to a third party fulfillment center for Shopify, then, and you then stock yourself out on Amazon, that doesn't really do you any favors. So until you get to the point, I think, of actually seeing high volume with that other platform, keeping it kind of plugged into kind of the Amazon ecosphere is a better kind of way to go about it. So I think it's got to be, slower growth, unless you have the cash flow. If you have a bunch of money, which in inventory-based businesses, that's not usually, we're not usually flush, is to be modest about it, but, really look and see, can you actually afford it without damaging what you currently have?
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Cool. Does anyone have any questions?
Let's see. Don't see any questions yet. You did a great job. Okay. In terms of like cash flow with your margins tool. So tell me a little bit more about your margins. Like, what are some of the KPIs that you look at with the margins?
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this, where Amazon, unfortunately, is overcharging you on FBA fees. Has anyone ever experienced that? And if you have, just let me know. Maybe everyone. Yeah. So this happened to us, where we were being overcharged by a great percentage. I would say 15 to 20%, unfortunately, to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars. And it was very hard to figure out, why this was going on, and hard to stop it from happening, or even identify which SKU was being impacted right away. We had to go in and like manually do the whole thing. So it started off with just a simple little FBA tool where we would go and check the FBA fees, and we called it the Fba Fee Margin Impact. And then it kind of built out from there, because we didn't have a full picture as to how profitable a SKU was. And I read a book called Profit First. Have you guys ever read that book? And there's another book called Profit First for e-commerce sellers. And Cindy Thomason wrote that book, and she's actually we've been on a webinar together, and she actually loves the margins tool. Cool. Because the margins tool shows you how much you're actually making in your business. And she says to shoot for 30% in the book. Yeah. So 30%, because 10% has to go and reinvest back into inventory. 10% should go back into new products and new discovery of new products. And then 10% you want to profit first. Do you want to make money in this business? So you pay yourself. Yeah. And there's a whole system in the Profit First way of life to actually pay yourself. You set up bank accounts and all that kind of stuff. So the margins tool is heavily sort of, I guess, inspired by the Profit First book. Because what we do is, when we go in there, we try to help sellers get to as close to 30% as possible. That is the target. Yeah. We know that if it's not close to 30%, if we go in there and it's like 10%, we know that it's kind of like a cosmetic number that might look good, but might not be sustainable. And it may not be possible to overcome any bumps in the road if something happens with your lead time, or the world ends, or coronavirus 2.0 comes out. Yeah. It makes it challenging. So closer to 30 or above, the more sustainable the business. Yeah. And then we look at why is it less than 30? It's like it's a diagnostic tool. Is it because the FBA fees are too high? Well, how does that compare to the other variations of that product? Is it different compared variation to variation? Yeah. Is there anything you can do about that? Is there improvements to your packaging that you can make? Because one little loose piece of tape can cost you millions.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sure it's cost somebody millions. It
Uh-huh.
cost us thousands. So if it cost us thousands, it's cost somebody else millions.
Because they measure that, right?
They do.
Yeah.
They scan it. So it's all scannable. And if you have one little, and it's hard to get that money back, guys. It's
Yeah.
so much better to be proactive about that. Tighten up your packaging, make sure it's within, normal, the best that you could possibly make it, and then go from there.
Uh-huh.
And then like things like the promotions, we didn't know the impact of an actual coupon or a promotion. There's two different things, coupon and also a lightning deal. You spoke about a lightning deal before.
Mhm.
Man, those things were a big waste of money.
Yeah, I stopped doing those. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to discount it. And then, I mean, what is that? And this is like why, Chelsea, your blog was so good. It's like doing a lightning deal sounds nice because your revenue is going to be high that month. But what does that do to everything else?
Yeah.
The margins tool helps you realize that the lightning deals is probably not the best idea. Maybe a good idea.
Yeah. If it's profitable, if you're making some sort of profit and you are really, you need to get your capital back. If you need to turn your money and you need to, infuse it into something else, it might be a good idea, because turnover, turning over your cash is huge. Like if you can take the same dollar and turn it 3 times versus 1, you're going to make a lot more money. So that's the only time it really starts to make some sense, is if you really need to, get that capital back to do something with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So it's very much on a case by case basis.
Yeah.
But, so we would look into that and be like, okay, what impact did that lightning deal have on the actual profitability of that individual SKU?
Yeah. And you factor in the fee, the lightning deal fees as well. I'm sure.
Yeah, we call that the promotion margin impact. So it's the cost to do the promotion, and the discount that you're giving is the total promotion margin impact. And when you log in, you can see, okay, the SKU's got this much profitability, but it's being impacted by the FBA fees 50%. What am I going to do? Or the advertising is 25%. Maybe you need to do some optimization or get rid of some brand awareness campaigns because you don't have the budget for it or the profitability to sustain it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it really depends on the life cycle of that SKU. If it's early on, that's acceptable. But if it's later on in the life cycle, you may want to take it to the chopping block, which we have a tool in there called the chopping block, which basically is just like, get rid of it. It's not serving your business. It's draining your business.
Yeah.
And then we go over the individual fees. And there's so many fees on Amazon that we have a whole column for other fees. And what are the impacts of the other fees? So we have the storage fees, the long-term storage fees, the inventory placement fees, the other fees, the promo fees, and then we have the return fees. What is the impact of a return? All of this stuff impacts your business.
Yeah.
And we just found that it was hard to know exactly, first off, how profitable a business was, but then how profitable each SKU was, and then also as a collective business across all of your different Amazon accounts, globally and internet and in the US, how do you look at your whole business and say, okay, what is my margins at the end of the day?
Yeah.
And that's what the tool does. And then we're working, I don't know if Lipa's on the call. He might be.
So I saw him, yeah.
Oh, there he is. Hey, Lipa. We're working with another Amazon seller who's a really great seller who manages businesses. If you guys are ever interested in having someone manage your business who wants to scale your business, Lipa's great. We're working with him to improve the reporting of the margins tool as well. And we're going to have customizable reporting that has never existed for any Amazon seller out there. Really great notifications, customizable reporting based on what you need, what your brand needs, all that kind of stuff. And then like we're going to eventually connect it to other channels like Walmart and eBay and all that kind of stuff, Shopify, so that you can just know. Just know what you're actually making. And who knows, maybe we'll connect it with SoStocked. Maybe we'll have an API connection together so the inventory can be better.
Yeah. I'd love to. That's one of the things I would love to do, is to get, to connect with marketing platforms, so that marketing platforms can feed in, the marketing plans, so that they automatically are ported into the inventory plan. So you don't have to manually, import it. It just feeds right in. So, goals.
Goals. Yeah. A lot of, everything's evolving. So, I thought I saw some questions in the, yes.
Oh, here we go in the Q&A. Yeah. Okay, so there's a, how much do you rely on BSR at choosing products? Also, which platform is better for currency exchange? First, World First or Pioneer?
We use Payoneer, but I think, yeah, we have used World First in the past. I forget why we stopped using them. No problems with Payoneer on my end.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. And then how much do you rely on BSR at choosing products? You know, we're not really talking much about sourcing, but
yeah, I would say that that's part of the process of choosing a product, but lately I choose more based on like what I think is going to be interesting and unique and different in the marketplace. BSR is certainly a factor. You know, you want to make sure you're going to get that sales velocity, but also look at the keywords that support it. I've made the mistake in the past of going after products that are really freaking awesome, like totally creative, but there's no keyword velocity behind it. So it totally relies on outside traffic, and that's a whole other game. You have to know your branding, you have to know marketing and all that kind of stuff. And that is a lot of work.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, you have to know what keywords you're going after and how many other people are going after them. So you kind of get an idea of how much it's going to cost you to rank on that.
right.
And then another question, as a new seller, is it necessary to have people buy my product and give them money back just for promoting my product? Any other way to promote my product on Amazon as a new seller?
As a new seller. Are you doing any advertising? You need the playbook, my friend, as well.
Yeah, I would say, you know, I mean, we didn't even talk about kind of your listing optimization, but that's probably another thing that needs to be looked at if you've got really, for a particular SKU, really high ACOS, is also to look at, you know, what is the conversion rate? Because if you're sending a bunch of traffic to a product that has a horrible conversion rate, then maybe it's not necessarily your product, maybe it's your listing, and that you need, you know, to rewrite it. You need to get better images. Your pricing is horrible for the amount of reviews you have. You know, that's a whole other discussion for another day. But listing optimization, you know, is kind of the horse before the cart. And then you get into the advertising.
Yeah, no, Chelsea, you do a lot of copywriting for listings and, you know, the badass business builders and all that.
Yeah.
Copywriting is so important. And I saw a great, I forget who it was. Oh, Stephen Black posted about making your listing scannable. And it really resonated with me because nowadays things are, you know, we have so much we have so many things that are prying for our attention. You know, so, and with the whole like social media, everyone's scanning things, like to have these big bulky blocks of text and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot that's evolving in the listing optimization space. The other thing though, guys, that's evolving is storefront optimization. There's a lot of junk on storefronts, Even major brands are doing storefronts in a way that I think they can significantly improve. And Amazon's going to make it so that you can drive more traffic to these storefronts. So that is another hidden gem of an opportunity. And we look at storefronts every day because we do outreach to different brands to get business. Like that's what we do. We look at their storefront. Most of them are terrible. Unfortunately, most of them are terrible. So keep that in mind that eventually Amazon will also give you a lot of organic traffic to your storefront. So build out your storefronts is another big piece.
Yeah.
And there's so many cool elements that sellers are not using for their storefront.
Yeah, I really like that you said scannable, because that's something that I've been doing in copywriting for several years, and not too many people are picking up on it, is using the all caps to highlight specific keywords and phrases in your copywriting. Because people get up on stage and they say nobody reads bullet points, but if you write them in such a way that it's scannable, they actually will read it. And there are ways to kind of get someone to, while scanning, read more of your copy than they actually intended to. So there's a whole lot, that's a completely different discussion for a different day, but I agree. That's how people are consuming content. You have to consider at every turn, how are people consuming content on the internet? How are people shopping on the internet? and pay a lot of attention to how you as a buyer do that as well. And I think you'll become a lot smarter as a marketer.
Right. Someone had their hand raised?
Yeah, it looks like Lipa has his hand raised. I don't know if he was doing that. It happened right after you asked about him. So he might have done it just to say, hey, here I am. Yeah.
Yeah, he wrote, I want real feedback and hate giveaways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The giveaways are not from going to give you real feedback.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, awesome. Any other questions? Feel free to throw them up. I'll send out with this. I have let's see, what's called the Amazon Inventory Planner. It's a free little kind of planning guide. I'll do a quick screen share so you can see what it looks like. But it's this inventory planner. It basically helps you to, plan out your marketing, and how everything fits together. So I'll be sending this out with the replay link. And I believe if you're interested in getting access to anything, Mike, you mentioned the playbook. If you're not on Mike's email list, how do they get on? How do they find you? How do they get on your email list?
So they can go to our website, ppcentourage.com, or if you guys want to text me, I will not text you anything back other than the playbook series, I promise you. But I have a bunch of people I have to text back the playbook series as soon as it's done. So if you want to text me, you can do that as well. I will send you over the playbook series as soon as it's live, which could be as early as this afternoon. We have just been going back iteration after iteration, and I thought it was going to be ready yesterday, but unfortunately, it's probably ready just as we speak right now. So my phone number is 516-946-6442. Let me put that in, 516-946-6442. If you text me, I will text it back to you. All you have to do is go to the sign up page, put your email address and your name, and you will automatically get a copy of the playbook series, which once again is a collection of over 30 videos and 28 different campaigns that you can use to build out your advertising strategy over time. Not meant to do all at once, but I'm sure you guys have different SKUs across, different parts of the life cycle of that SKU, and you can pick and choose which campaigns can help build out the advertising for that SKU.
Awesome. Very, very cool. You guys definitely check that out. Did you have any sort of a coupon or anything like that? I know we discussed, we weren't sure if we landed on that.
Yeah, we made one for, if you guys want to sign up for margins, we made one called Labor Day, one word, Labor Day.
Cool.
And that's good for margins or PPC Entourage, and it's good for 20% off for, I believe, 12 months. So awesome. Labor Day.
Very cool, very cool. I'm going to drop a link in the chat. This is a 30-day trial of SoStocked. We don't do free trials right now because we've got, just limited capacity. We onboard every single one of our users. I talk to them personally. I do a 1 hour, basically a 1 hour strategy call, answer any questions. We'll do free migration. So we don't do a free trial. We have never done it since we started. We are only offering it for people who watch the webinar. So I'm giving you the webinar link. You guys can sign up. That's available till the end of Sunday night. So if you guys want to check that out, see how that goes. If you want to check it out, see what I'm doing inside of the software and rip it off and put it in an Excel spreadsheet, it'll give you some really great ideas. So either way, however you're handling your inventory, it's interesting to check out. All right. Any last parting words of wisdom? Anything you wanted to say?
Chelsea, I just want to say thank you also so much for your work with Days of Nuggets and also with Voices Against Child Trafficking. That's how you and I connect. I think we connected maybe about a year ago on that. Mm-hmm. And I just want to say that, guys, if you're not following this chat, this group, it's on Facebook, Voices Against Child Trafficking. It's an amazing group. It's an action-oriented group where they're helping to raise awareness for kids who are being trafficked in this world, taken against their will and held and done, and they're living an existence that we couldn't possibly imagine. So to learn more about that, Chelsea, how can they find you on Facebook in that group?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let me see if I can grab a link to the group. I know that there's a website being built out. Our friend Sonia is working with Catherine, who is also a founding member. She was one of the first members of the group, and they're working on a nonprofit organization. And so we're jumping in. You can jump into this group. We also, as part of the questions, we asked for an email, because if Facebook decides that they want to shut us down, we'll at least have it, your email. You can or can't, you can choose not to include your email, but if you wanted to stay connected to us and actually, ensure that you can, know what's going on with this movement, then definitely throwing your email in there. We will be able to add it to our list and get you more information. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
Oh, yeah, anytime.
Yeah, and thank you for taking the time for talking, for putting the tools together that you have. I know it's as a fellow tool builder, it's sometimes you're basically in a completely uncharted territory, and we build these tools because they don't exist. So
we're entrepreneurs at heart. It's like,
yeah.
okay, what needs to be improved in the world, and how can we make it happen? That's
Yeah.
basically, so any kind of problem that exists, I know we'll be there to try to fix it. I know you guys are probably the same way. So
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs Unite, and it was great spending time with you all.
Yes, you too. Thank you so much for
having me,
being
Cassie.
on. Yeah. All right. Talk to you later, guys. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.